The blue sun of Kellis cast long shadows across the crystal spires of the capital city as the first explosions bloomed like deadly flowers against the evening sky. High Counselor Vex pressed his four-fingered hands against the observation decks. Transparent walls, watching his world burn. How long until the orbital defenses fall? He asked without turning around. Commander Rix checked the holographic display floating before him. Red indicators blinked across the three-dimensional map of their home system. 6 hours, maybe 7 if we're lucky. Lucky? Vex almost laughed at the word. The Kellan had believed in luck once, back when their biggest concern was whether the harvest season would be bountiful. That was before the Vorth Empire had arrived with their massive war fleets and their hunger for conquest. The evacuation ships? Vex asked. Loading now, but we can only save maybe 10% of the population. The Vorth blockade is too strong. Rix's voice carried the weight of a soldier who had fought impossible odds and knew defeat when he saw another explosion rock the building. Somewhere in the distance, one of their beautiful crystal towers collapsed in a shower of sparkling fragments. Each fallen spire represented thousands of years of careful growth, of patient cultivation. The Kellan had never been warriors. They were gardeners, artists, philosophers. They had joined the Galactic Council, believing that civilization meant the end of such barbarism. They had been wrong. Sir, a young technician called from across the command center. The long-range transmitter is still operational. We could send out a distress call. Vex turned from the window. Hope was a dangerous thing, but it was all they had left. Do it. Send it on all frequencies, all known languages. Tell them we need help. The technician's fingers danced across the control surface. Message broadcasting now, sir. But the nearest Council fleet is 3 weeks away, and the Altarian Defense Force explicitly told us they won't risk war with the Vorth. Send it anyway. The distress signal raced through space, carrying with it the desperate plea of a dying world. It reached the trade stations of the Merchant Guild, who noted it and filed it away as another unfortunate business loss. It touched the sensors of the Altarian Defense Force, who had already calculated that the Kellan weren't worth the cost in ships and lives. It passed by a dozen other civilizations, all of whom had heard similar calls before, and learned that intervention usually meant becoming the next target. But the signal didn't stop there. It continued past the boundaries of known space, into the territories that most galactic maps simply marked as unexplored or hazardous. It reached a small blue world orbiting a yellow star, a planet so dangerous that most civilized species considered it uninhabitable. On Earth, Admiral Jack Stone was reviewing supply reports in his office aboard the orbital station. Armstrong when Lieutenant Maya Cross burst through the door without bothering to announce herself. Sir, you need to hear this. She activated her portable display unit, and suddenly the command center filled with the translated voice of High Counselor Vex, speaking in the measured tones of someone trying to stay calm while his world died. Around him, this is the Kellan Council of Kellis. Our world is under attack by the Vorth Empire. Our defenses are failing. We have civilian evacuations in progress, but we cannot save everyone. We are requesting immediate assistance from any able forces. Please, if anyone receives this message, we need help. Our coordinates are... The message continued, but Stone was already moving. Cross, get me fleet command, full priority channel. Sir, the Galactic Council protocols state that we should wait for the hell with protocols. Stone's jaw was set in the expression his officers knew meant someone was about to have a very bad day. How long to spin up the fleet? Which ships, sir? All of them, Cross blinked. Sir, that's the entire Third Fleet. 47 vessels, including 3 dreadnoughts. The Council can file a complaint later. Stone was already pulling up star charts. calculating jump coordinates. Those people are dying right now. We have the ships, we have the firepower, and we have the duty. Send the word. All vessels prepare for immediate departure. As alarms began sounding throughout the station, Stone looked out at the blue marble of Earth, hanging in space below. His homeworld looked peaceful from here, almost fragile. Most aliens who bothered to study it classified Earth as a Class 12. Deathworld, a planet so hostile that evolving intelligence there should have been impossible. What they didn't understand was that surviving on a Deathworld didn't make you weak, that it made you dangerous. Asterisk, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace. At the edge of the Kellis system, like a pack of predators emerging from tall grass. Admiral Stone stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Defiance, watching the tactical display update as his ships spread into formation. Jesus, whispered Navigator Tom Reed, staring at the readings. Look at the size of that Vorth fleet. Stone counted the red dots on his screen. 137 enemy vessels, including what looked like 5 battleships. His own force seemed tiny by comparison, but he'd learned long ago that size wasn't everything in a fight. Communications, open a channel to the Kellan government. Let them know help has arrived. The reply came faster than expected. High Counselor Vex appeared on the main screen, his alien features showing obvious exhaustion. Behind him, Stone could see the smoking ruins of what had once been a beautiful city. Unknown vessels, this is High Counselor Vex of the Kellan Council. Please identify yourselves. The translator gave Vex's voice a mechanical quality, but the desperation came through. Clearly. This is Admiral Jack Stone of the Earth Defense Fleet. We received your distress call and came as soon as we could. Vex's 4 eyes widened. Earth? But your world isn't in our databases. What species are you? We call ourselves humans. We're from a planet about 40 light years from here. There was a long pause. Behind Vex, another Kellan was frantically working at what looked like a computer terminal. The alien's expression grew more and more concerned as he read whatever information he'd found. Admiral Stone, Vex said slowly, our scientists have located your world in our star charts. According to our classification system, your planet it's listed as a Class 12 Deathworld. No intelligent life should be able to evolve there. Stone almost smiled. We get that a lot. But we're here, and we're ready to help. I don't understand. Your fleet is so small compared to the Vorth forces. They have over 100 ships, and they've conquered 17 worlds in the past 2 years. No one has been able to stop them. Hi, Counselor, has anyone from a Deathworld ever tried? Before Vex could answer, alarms began sounding on both bridges. The Vorth had noticed the new arrivals and were moving to intercept. Stone watched as a formation of 30 enemy ships broke away from the main fleet and began accelerating toward his position. Admiral, called out his weapons officer, Captain Lisa Park. Enemy vessels are charging weapons. Estimate 12 minutes until they're in range. Good. That gives us time to talk. Stone turned back to the screen. High Counselor, I need you to understand something about humans. We come from a world where everything tries to kill us. The weather, the animals, the plants, even the bacteria. We've been fighting for survival since the day we climbed down from the trees. But surely the Galactic Council, we're not part of your council. We only learned about it 3 years ago, when one of your survey ships got lost and ended up in our system. Until today, we've been watching from the sidelines, learning about galactic civilization. Vex looked confused. Then why are you here? You don't know us. We can offer you nothing in return. Stone was quiet for a moment, remembering his daughter's question when he told her about the mission. Why do we have to help people we don't even know, Daddy? His answer then was the same as it was now. Because it's the right thing to do. The Vorth formation was getting closer. Stone could see individual ship types now, cruisers mostly, with a couple of destroyers for support. Standard intimidation formation, designed to make enemies surrender before the fight even started. "Admiral," Vex said urgently, "you must retreat. Your ships will be destroyed. The Vorth have weapons that can... High Counselor, with respect, you've never seen Deathworlders fight." Stone nodded to his communications officer. "Send this message to the Vorth fleet. This is Admiral Stone of the human fleet. You are attacking innocent civilians. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The reply came back in heavily accented Galactic Standard. "Unknown primitives, you are interfering in Vorth expansion. Surrender now or be destroyed." Stone turned to his weapons. "Officer, Captain Park, you may fire when ready." "Sir, they're still 8 minutes out of our range." "I wasn't talking about ship weapons." Stone activated his personal communicator. Throughout his fleet, similar conversations were happening on 46 other ships. "All Marines, this is Admiral Stone. We've got civilians dying down there, and enemies who think they can do whatever they want because no one's ever stood up to them. Time to show them what humans do to bullies." On the Marine deck of the Defiance, Sergeant Mike Torres was already suited up in his combat armor. Around him, 200 other Marines were doing the same. They'd been listening to the bridge communications, and every one of them was thinking the same thing. The Vorth formation was getting closer. Stone could see individual ship types now, cruisers mostly, with a couple of destroyers for support. Standard intimidation formation, designed to make enemies surrender before the fight even started. "Admiral," Vex said urgently, "you must retreat. Your ships will be destroyed. The Vorth have weapons that can... High Counselor, with respect, you've never seen Deathworlders fight." Stone nodded to his communications officer. "Send this message to the Vorth fleet. This is Admiral Stone of the human fleet. You are attacking innocent civilians. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." The reply came back in heavily accented Galactic Standard. "Unknown primitives, you are interfering in Vorth expansion. Surrender now or be destroyed." Stone turned to his weapons officer. "Captain Park, you may fire when ready." "Sir, they're still 8 minutes out of our range." "I wasn't talking about ship weapons." Stone activated his personal communicator. Throughout his fleet, similar conversations were happening on 46 other ships. "All Marines, this is Admiral Stone. We've got civilians dying down there, and enemies who think they can do whatever they want because no one's ever stood up to them. Time to show them what humans do to bullies." On the Marine deck of the Defiance, Sergeant Mike Torres was already suited up in his combat armor. Around him, 200 other Marines were doing the same. They'd been listening to the bridge communications, and every one of them was thinking the same thing. The Vorth had picked the wrong species to threaten. "Listen up." Torres shouted over the sound of weapons being checked and armor systems coming online. "We're going in hot and fast. These aliens have been pushing around peaceful folks for too long, and it ends today." A younger Marine raised her hand. "Sarge, what if there are too many of them?" Torres grinned, the expression visible through his helmet's transparent visor. "Private, we're humans from Earth. There are always too many of them. That's what makes it fun." As the dropships launched from the human fleet, Admiral Stone watched the Vorth formation continue its approach. They had no idea what was coming. In their experience, civilized species fought ship-to-ship battles at long range, trading fire until one side retreated or was destroyed. They'd never encountered a species that preferred to get up close and personal. "Admiral," Captain Park reported, all dropships away. "Marines will reach the surface in 6 minutes." Stone nodded. "And the Vorth?" "Still 4 minutes out from weapons range. Perfect timing." Stone activated the fleet-wide channel. All ships, prepare for close combat. Remember, we're not trying to destroy them all, just convince them that this isn't worth it. On the surface of Kellis, High Counselor Vex was still trying to understand what he was seeing. The human ships hadn't retreated. Instead, they were moving forward, directly toward the superior Vorth force. It was either the bravest thing he'd ever witnessed, or the most foolish. He was about to find out which. The first Vorth plasma barrage lit up space like a deadly light show. Admiral Stone watched the enemy fire splash harmlessly against his ship's shields and shook his head. Typical civilized warfare. Long range, polite, predictable. Return fire, he ordered calmly. The human response was different. Where Vorth weapons painted space in broad strokes of superheated gas, human railguns sent solid projectiles screaming across the void at a significant fraction of light speed. The tungsten slugs punched through Vorth shields like they weren't. Even there, not 3 enemy cruisers disappeared in expanding clouds of debris. What? The Vorth commander's voice crackled over the com channel. Impossible. No one uses kinetic weapons anymore. Stone smiled grimly. No one from a civilized world, maybe. On the surface of Kellis, Sergeant Torres and his Marines were having their own conversation with Vorth ground forces. The aliens had expected another species like the Kellan, tall, graceful beings who would surrender rather than fight to the death. Instead, they got humans. "Contact front," shouted Private Amy Chun as her squad rounded a corner in the ruined city. A squad of Vorth soldiers was advancing down the street, their energy weapons sweeping left and right. The Vorth were impressive by galactic standards, 2.5 meters tall, heavily armored, with weapons that could melt through most known materials. They moved in perfect formation, confident in their superiority. They lasted exactly 17 seconds. Shun went low, rolling behind a piece of rubble as pulse fire sizzled overhead. Her teammate, Private Joe Wilson, went high, using his suits. Jump jets to leap onto a second-story balcony. Private Maria Santos simply went through, her heavy combat armor shrugging off hits that would have vaporized a Kellan. The Vorth had never faced enemies who attacked from 3 different directions simultaneously, while absorbing damage that should have killed them. By the time they realized what was happening, half their squad was down. "Impossible," one of the surviving Vorth gasped into his communicator. "These creatures, they don't retreat. They don't even slow down when hit." Torres's voice crackled. Through the Marines' comm system. "Alpha Squad, nice work. Beta Squad, you've got civilians trapped in the Crystal Tower at grid reference 7-4. Move fast. Building's about to collapse." "On our way, Sarge," came the reply. In space, the Vorth fleet was learning similar lessons. Admiral Stone's ships fought like nothing they'd ever encountered. Human vessels would accelerate straight at enemy formations, absorbing punishment that would cripple normal ships, then unleash devastating close-range attacks. The Defiance took a direct hit from a Vorth battleship's main gun. The blast would have destroyed most vessels. Instead, the human dreadnought's armor buckled, her shields flared, and she kept coming. "All weapons, target that battleship," Stone ordered. "Show them what Deathworlder engineering looks like." The Defiance's main gun spoke, not energy weapons like civilized species used, but massive magnetic accelerators that hurled meter-long tungsten spears at velocities that bent space-time. The Vorth battleship's shields collapsed instantly. The projectiles punched through its hull and out the other side, carrying half the ship's internal structure with them. "Vorth fleet, this is Admiral Stone," he broadcast on all channels. "You've lost 12 ships in 10 minutes. We've lost 0. Your ground forces are being systematically eliminated by troops they can't even slow down. I'm offering you one chance to withdraw with what's left of your fleet." The reply came from the Vorth fleet commander, his voice tight with something. That might have been fear. What are you? What species fights like this? We're humans. We come from a world where everything tries to kill us, so we learn to kill back. Your empire has been conquering peaceful species who don't know how to fight. You just ran into one that does. On Kellis, High Counselor Vex was watching the battle through his sensors with something approaching disbelief. The human Marines weren't just winning. They were doing things that should have been impossible. He watched a single human soldier charge a Vorth heavy weapons position, take 3 direct hits, and keep moving. The alien weapons that could melt through starship hulls barely slowed the human down. "Counselor," his aide whispered, "are we watching the same battle?" Before Vex could answer, one of the human Marines appeared on their communication screen. It was Sergeant Torres, his armor scarred but functional, his weapon still smoking from recent use. "High Counselor, this is Sergeant Torres. We've secured the government district and are moving to evacuate your people. How many civilians are still in the danger zone?" Approximately 50,000, but Sergeant, your people are fighting impossible odds." "How are you, sir, with respect? Impossible odds are what we call Tuesday. We'll have your people out in 2 hours. Torres out." The communication cut, leaving Vex staring at a blank screen. Around him, his staff was receiving reports from across the planet. The same story everywhere. Small groups of humans moving through areas that entire Vorth battalions had considered secure, rescuing civilians and eliminating enemy forces with casual efficiency. In space, the Vorth fleet was learning what it meant to fight an enemy that didn't follow the rules of civilized warfare. Human ships would ram enemy vessels if their weapons weren't enough. Human fighters would fly kamikaze runs that no sane pilot would attempt. Human tactics assumed that taking massive damage was acceptable as long as you dealt more in return. "Admiral," Captain Park reported, "Vorth fleet is beginning to withdraw. They're pulling back to the outer system." Stone nodded. "Let them go. We made our point." "Sir, shouldn't we pursue?" "We could destroy their entire fleet." "We could," Stone agreed. "But that's not why we're here. We came to save lives, not start a war." On the surface, the last Vorth ground forces were fleeing to their transports. Sergeant Torres watched them go through his rifle scope, but didn't fire. His orders had been clear: protect the civilians, eliminate threats, but don't pursue fleeing enemies. A group of Kellan civilians emerged from their hiding place, staring in wonder at the human Marine who had just saved their lives. One of them, a young child, approached cautiously. "Are you an angel?" the child asked in broken Galactic standard. Torres removed his helmet, revealing a scarred face and tired eyes. "No, kid, I'm just human." The child's parent pulled them back, clearly afraid. Torres understood. Humans were aliens to them, strange creatures from a world so dangerous that their very existence seemed impossible. But as more civilians emerged from hiding, as the sounds of battle faded and the city began to breathe again, something changed in their expressions. Fear gave way to curiosity, then to something that might have been respect. In orbit, Admiral Stone was receiving reports from across the system. The Vorth fleet was in full retreat. Ground forces were evacuating. The immediate threat was over. "Admiral," came High Counselor Vex's voice over the comm, "I don't know how to thank you. Your people saved our world." "No thanks necessary," Stone replied. "Just doing what anyone would do." "But that's not true, is it? The Galactic Council, the other species, they all had reasons not to help. You didn't even know us." Stone was quiet for a moment, looking out at the blue marble of Kellis hanging in space. It reminded him of Earth, beautiful and fragile, and worth protecting. "High Counselor, where we come from, there's a saying, the only thing necessary for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. We decided to do something, as the human fleet began organizing relief efforts. Word of the battle was already spreading through galactic communication networks. A small fleet from an unknown world had defeated the mighty Vorth Empire in a matter of hours. The galaxy was about to learn that there were worse things than Deathworlders. There were Deathworlders. With a conscience. The news traveled faster than the human fleet had. Within hours of the Battle of Kellis, every major communication hub in the galaxy was buzzing with the same impossible story. An unknown species from a death world had single-handedly defeated the Vorth Empire. On the Galactic Council station orbiting Centauri Prime, Speaker Nolan of the Altarian Federation was having what humans might have called a very bad day. "You're telling me," he said slowly, "that these humans destroyed 12 Vorth warships without losing a single vessel?" His aide, a nervous Bellani named Kress, nodded rapidly. "Yes, Speaker. And their ground forces eliminated 3 full battalions of Vorth troops while suffering minimal casualties. The combat recordings are disturbing." "Show me." The holographic display lit up with footage from Kellis. Nolan watched a human soldier charge directly into enemy fire, his armor absorbing hits that should have killed him, before destroying an entire Vorth squad with weapons that seemed primitive by galactic standards. "This is impossible," Nolan breathed. "No species fights like this." "No civilized species," Kress corrected quietly. Across the galaxy, similar conversations were taking place in a dozen different languages on 100 different worlds. The Merchant Guild was frantically calculating the economic implications of a new military power. The Vorth Empire was pulling back their expansion fleets and fortifying their borders. And on dozens of worlds currently under Vorth occupation, resistance movements were suddenly looking up at the stars with new hope. Admiral Stone was reviewing casualty reports in his ready room when Lieutenant Cross knocked on his door. "Come in, Maya. What's the situation?" "Sir, we've been receiving communications from all over the galaxy. Distress calls, requests for assistance, offers of alliance. Apparently, word travels fast out here." Stone leaned back in his chair. "How many requests?" 47 in the last 6 hours. "And sir, some of them are from worlds under Vorth occupation." "I see." Stone was quiet for a moment. "What's Earth Command saying?" "They're concerned. President Davis wants to know if we just started a galactic war." Stone almost smiled. "Maya, the war was already happening. We just changed which side was winning." Down on Kellis, High Counselor Vex was dealing with his own flood of communications. The Galactic Council wanted to know why he hadn't informed them of humanity's existence. The Altarian Federation was suddenly very interested in establishing diplomatic relations with the Kellan. And from across the galaxy, species he'd never even heard of were asking about the humans. "Counselor," his aide reported, "we have a priority message from the Talon Republic. They're requesting immediate military assistance against Vorth forces." "The Tolan? But they're halfway across the galaxy." "Yes, sir. Apparently, 3 Tolan worlds are currently under siege. They want to know if the humans would consider intervening." Vex looked out at the human ships still orbiting his world. The vessels looked different from any design in his databases. More angular, more aggressive, built by people who expected their ships to take damage and keep fighting. "Put me through to Admiral Stone." When Stone's face appeared on the screen, Vex could see the weight of command in the human's eyes. The same look that Vex himself wore, the burden of making decisions that affected entire worlds. "Admiral, I've been receiving requests from across the galaxy. Species under Vorth attack, asking for human assistance." "I thought you should know." Stone nodded. "We've been getting similar messages. It seems our little rescue operation has attracted some attention." "What will you do?" Stone was quiet for a long moment. "High Counselor, let me ask you something. In your culture, If you see someone being attacked by a bully, what do? We would try to help, of course. But the Vorth Empire is enormous. They have thousands of ships, control dozens of worlds. So did every empire that ever fell. Stone's expression was grim but determined. The thing about bullies is, they're usually cowards at heart. They pick on people who can't fight back. When someone finally stands up to them, you think the Vorth will retreat? I think the Vorth just learned that the galaxy isn't as defenseless as they thought. On the Vorth homeworld, War Commander Thak was facing his own crisis. The species that had conquered 17 worlds in 2 years was suddenly questioning everything they thought they knew about warfare. Explain to me again, Thak demanded, how a single human soldier survived direct hits from our heavy pulse weapons. His science officer, a younger Vorth named Keld, pulled up the combat analysis. Sir, their armor appears to be designed to absorb and redistribute kinetic energy. But more importantly, their physiology is unlike anything we've encountered. They have redundant organ systems, enhanced bone density, muscle fiber that's 3 times stronger than standard biological norms. Enhanced? By whom? Not enhanced, sir. Natural. They evolved these traits on their homeworld. Thak studied the planetary data on his screen. Earth, a world of extreme weather, deadly predators, and natural disasters that would kill most galactic species within hours. No wonder they fight like demons, he muttered. Their entire planet tried to kill them for millions of years. Sir, there's more. Our intelligence suggests this was just a small portion of their fleet. Earth appears to have significant military reserves. Thak felt something he hadn't experienced in years. Uncertainty. The Vorth Empire had built its power on the assumption that no single species could effectively resist them. Now they faced enemies who seemed to treat impossible odds as a minor inconvenience. Order the recall, he said finally. All expansion fleets return to defensive positions. Sir, are we retreating? We're reassessing. Thak's voice carried the weight of an empire's wounded pride. Until we understand these humans better, we avoid direct confrontation. As the human fleet prepared to split up and begin patrolling galactic space, High Counselor Vex stood on his observation deck, watching the massive ships maneuver in orbit. The city below was already beginning to rebuild, Kellan engineers working, alongside human technical specialists who seemed to find solutions to problems that had plagued his people for years. His aide approached quietly. Counselor, the Galactic Council is demanding an explanation for humanity's intervention. They say it violates non-interference protocols. Vex almost laughed. Tell the Council that the humans weren't bound by protocols they never signed. And remind them that while they were debating procedures, these people were saving lives. And if they demand sanctions against the humans, then they'll discover that the Kellan are no longer interested in Council policies that value paperwork over people. As night fell over the Kellan homeworld, the stars seemed brighter somehow. And among them, human ships stood watch, ready to answer the next call for help. The galaxy was learning that there was something more dangerous than thins. Deathworlders. There were Deathworlders who refused to stand by and watch innocents suffer. Asterisk 6. Months after the Battle of Kellis, Admiral Stone stood in what had once been the Galactic Council's emergency session chamber. The room was packed with representatives from dozens of species, all waiting to hear what the human had to say. The galaxy had changed. Where Vorth expansion fleets had once moved freely through space, human patrol groups now maintained vigilant watch. Where occupied worlds had suffered in silence, liberation fleets flew under Earth's banner. Where the Galactic Council had debated and delayed, human commanders made decisions in hours that saved lives. The Terran Defense Pact, Stone announced, is not a replacement for existing galactic institutions. It's a promise. Any world that requests protection will receive it. Any species that faces extinction will find allies. Any empire that believes might makes right will discover they're wrong. Speaker Nolan of the Altarian Federation raised one of his 4 hands. Admiral Stone, while we appreciate humanity's single quotes intervention, in recent conflicts, the Council must address the legal implications of your actions. Stone's expression didn't change. With respect, Speaker, the legal implications were addressed. The moment your Council chose to abandon the Kellan to their fate. When established institutions fail to protect innocent lives, new institutions must take their place. But you're talking about fundamental changes to galactic order. Yes, Stone replied simply. I am. The chamber erupted in dozens of different languages as species that had coexisted peacefully for centuries suddenly found themselves debating the future of their civilization. But Stone noticed something interesting. The loudest objections came from species whose worlds were safe and comfortable. The representatives from formerly occupied planets sat quietly, their support clear in their silence. High Counselor Vex stood from his seat. Speaker Nolan, may I address the chamber? Nolan looked like he'd rather refuse, but protocol demanded he allow it. The floor recognizes High Counselor Vex of the Kellan Republic. 6 months ago, Vex began. My world was dying. My people were being slaughtered by an empire that believed superior firepower gave them the right to destroy entire civilizations. We sent out a distress call, begging for help from anyone who would listen. He paused, looking around the chamber at faces that couldn't quite meet his eyes. The Altarian Federation calculated that intervention would be too costly. The Merchant Guild determined that our trade routes weren't valuable enough to defend. The Council debated procedures and protocols, while my cities burned. 43 civilized species heard our plea for help, and 43 civilized species found reasons to do nothing. The chamber was completely silent now. Then a small fleet from a world most of you had never heard of dropped out of hyperspace and asked a simple question. How can we help? No debates about cost, no calculations about strategic value, no concerns about legal precedent, just beings who saw others suffering and decided to act. Vex's 4 eyes found Stone across the chamber. The humans didn't save my world because they had to. They saved it because they chose to. Because somewhere in their violent, dangerous evolutionary history, they learned that protecting others isn't about profit or politics. It's about being worthy of the intelligence you've been given. When Vex sat down, the silence stretched for almost a full minute. Finally, a new voice spoke up, Representative Kalla from the Tolan Republic. 3 months ago, human forces liberated our colonies from Vorth occupation. They asked for nothing in return except the assurance that we would extend the same protection to others if needed. Her voice carried the weight of gratitude mixed with determination. The Tolan Republic formally requests membership in the Terran Defense Pact, as does the Kellan Republic, Vex added. The Belane Confederation as well, called another voice. One by one, representatives from across the galaxy stood to announce their support. Not all of them, the established powers remained seated, unwilling to cede their comfortable positions. But enough voices rose that the chamber's acoustics couldn't handle them all. Speaker Nolan called for order, but Stone could see the reality written on his face. The old galactic order was crumbling, and something new was taking its place. Later, in a private meeting room aboard his flagship, Stone was reviewing reports from across human-protected space. The results were better than he dared hope. Vorth. Expansion had stopped completely. Pirate attacks had dropped by 70%. Trade routes that had been too dangerous to use were now bustling with merchant traffic. Admiral, Lieutenant Cross entered with the latest intelligence briefing. Long-range sensors have detected Vorth fleet movements near the outer rim. Looks like they're testing our response times. Stone nodded. Send the 4th Squadron. Make Sure, they know we're watching. Sir, the 4th Squadron is just 5 ships. Maya, we've learned something important about bullies. They don't want a fair fight. They want an easy victory. Every time we show up, even in small numbers, they remember what happened at Kellis. Stone smiled grimly. 5 human ships represents more firepower than most species can deploy in their entire fleet. Cross updated her tactical display. What about the Council, sir? Speaker Nolan is demanding another meeting. Let him demand. The Council had their chance to lead. They chose committees over courage. Stone looked out at the stars through his Ready Room's viewport. We're not trying to rule the galaxy, Maya. We're just making sure no one else rules it through fear. On Earth, President Davis was holding her own meeting with the Joint Chiefs of Staff. The holographic display showed the current deployment of Earth's forces. Nearly 200 ships spread across 3 sectors of space, with more being built. Every month, Madam President, Admiral Chun of the Pacific Fleet said, "We're stretching our resources thin." Every month brings more requests for assistance. "And we build more ships," Davis replied. Admiral Stone was right. We can't pick and choose which innocent lives are worth saving. The economic impact will be significant, Davis agreed. But consider the alternative. If we let the galaxy slide back into the law of the strongest, how long before that violence reaches Earth? How long before our children face an enemy? We could have stopped today. General Williams of the Marine Corps leaned forward. "Madam President, our forces report high morale. The troops understand what they're fighting for. When you're protecting families from genocide, resource allocation becomes a secondary concern." Davis nodded. "Then we continue. Double ship production, expand recruitment, and make it clear to the galaxy that Earth's protection isn't conditional on politics or profit." Back on Kellis, Sergeant Torres was training a group of Kellan security forces in basic combat techniques. The graceful aliens were never going to be warriors like humans, but they could learn to defend themselves. "Remember," Torres called out, as his students practiced movement drills, "you're not trying to win a fight. You're trying to survive long enough for help to arrive." One of the Kellan, a young female named Tess, raised her hand. "Sergeant Torres, what if help doesn't come?" Torres looked at her seriously. "And you fight anyway. Not because you can win, but because some things are worth fighting for, even when you can't." After the training session, Torres found himself on the observation deck where High Counselor Vex had first watched his world burn. Now the view showed a thriving city, its crystal spires rebuilt and gleaming in the light of their blue sun. "Sergeant," Vex approached quietly, "I wanted to thank you again, not just for the military victory, but for what you've taught us about courage. Sir, you had courage before we arrived. You just needed to learn how to use it." Vex was quiet for a moment. "Do you think it will last? This new peace?" Torres looked up at the stars, where human ships maintained their eternal watch. "Counselor, peace isn't something you achieve once and keep forever. It's something you choose every single day. Every time you stand up to a bully, every time you help someone who can't help themselves, every time you choose to do what's right, instead of what's easy. And if the Vorth return, if they bring their entire fleet, then they'll learn what happens when Deathworlders get serious."